is out the way, then we can actually talk. Can everyone see my screen? Beautiful. Okay, thank you. So where to begin? There's a bit of a lofty title for this chat, but hopefully we can all get a little something from it. So I'll introduce myself, I'll do a little introduction on Journey, and then we're going to dive into this very mysterious term of multidimensional experiences, because we're not defining experiences today, which I know has been done many times, and I won't even attempt to, but hopefully shedding light on some other works that many of you are already doing, but just adding a bit more color to it. So quickly, a little bit about me. As I said, my name is Constance. I'm a project director at Journey. I started out in the company Journey. Journey was formed a few years ago and is a growing organization with a few different agencies in the creative and design space. So Squint Opera we are filmmakers and storytellers and experience designers. We also have iCrave, who are spatial designers, interior architects, lighting practice as well, and a conversational AI and strategy arm. So quite a few different dimensions, and some of that is what I will be speaking through. The picture here, I chose this one for two reasons. First, because my brother is in it. My brother also works at Journey, which is a fun fact and kind of a wonderful part of our day-to-day collaboration and the really creative space that we grew up in. And the other reason I chose this is as a reminder of some of the most simple things can often be the most beautiful and fun and experiential. So here we are pictured in a cardboard box that we turned into a pirate ship. I just, yeah, sometimes we can overcook things, and the simplest stuff are the most effective. So I'm a project director at Journey, which means I lead one of the teams here, and that team is made up of a range of people. We have producers, designers, strategists working across a really wide range of projects, from strategy to building AI agents to spatial design to media production. So it's a very broad spectrum. And we have a core team, but we expand that constantly with other members of the company, with other companies and collaborators. And it's really that breadth that makes my day-to-day extremely exciting. To talk a little bit about Squint Opera, which is my origin point, and I think a very interesting trajectory for us. There are so many of these dystopian visions of the future out there. A few common examples from film and video games. And granted, I love films and video games. They're very fun in these dystopian settings. But something that I feel very fortunate to have been able to do as part of Squint Opera is show stories of positive futures, visions of the future. And we work with a lot of architects and designers and governments as well, to kind of showcase what the future will look like. These are actual designs are being kind of conceived of and built, and from what it looks like, the future is green and pedestrian and active and thrilling. And so hopefully we're not designing dystopias just yet. And that we have visualized either exist and are here today, like the Spiral, under construction, coming soon, like Trojena up in the mountains in Saudi Arabia. Or, who knows if they'll ever get made. This is a prospective city in the desert called Tolosa, conceived of by Mark Laurie in collaboration with Big. And in visualizing the future, at least that's where we started off at, and what we're continuing to do, but we're also now moving into the space of designing these experiences. And so we're in this exciting place where we're doing a bit of both. We're doing this visioning, but we're also doing the making. So multidimensional, which, you know, the way we break it down is into these axes: physical, human, technological, chronological, which in some ways might be very obvious. And you know, every in our daily lives is bound experienced by humans, integrated within the space-time continuum. But I think what we're really thinking about with this idea of multidimensional is that each of these is such a core pillar, a core vector of experience, and we can't be favoring one over the other, especially, you know, technology is ubiquitous, whatever your opinion of it may be. And so, in fact, thinking of it very deeply of how to integrate it meaningfully is all the more important. But we also think about multidimensional, at least within Journey, around the different teams and the different disciplines that we contain, the people we work with, and then outside of our own company, the people we collaborate with. And just to take a little example of where this approach to design can be applied, something that iCrave, which is one of the Journey studios, has been working a lot in is the healthcare space, the future of healthcare. And so if you take the patient waiting room, arguably, most people wouldn't necessarily qualify it as an experience, and certainly not a good
Oh, hey, Constance.
experience.
Constance, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yet it is an experience and one we should be thinking about. Mhm.
Hey, Constance, I don't mean to interrupt you. There's actually a little bit
What's
of
up,
choppiness on your audio and video.
Josh? Yeah.
Oh yeah, can you hear me okay?
Oh,
Yeah, there's a little bit of
I
choppy.
can hear you, but you're
Yeah, I
okay.
think I think your connection might be there might be something going on there. Do you want to maybe close down some other apps, or do you have like an external camera running maybe?
I can turn off my camera. Has that helped at all? Oh
Um,
no.
no, I'd like to have I think the camera would be good. Okay, we'll edit out all this part. It's totally fine. Um,
How how much was missed?
oh no, I think it's okay. You could get it. It was just a little bit choppy. It kind of came in and out a little bit.
Okay. Should I keep my camera on or? Oh, it
Um,
improved after the camera. Okay, I'll turn it off for now.
okay, why don't we turn it off for now? We'll just yeah, we'll go. You can we'll go ghost mode. Everybody, you and I will. Oh, sorry. We'll both go camera off, and then we'll pick it up camera on for the Q&A.
Okay. Okay. Is there anything? I'll just pick up where I was.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so okay, great. Thank you very much, Kyle, for the live feedback. So yeah, when we're taking the patient waiting room as an example of a place that is an experience but is lacking experience and consideration. I was actually just looking for a picture online to illustrate this point, and I found this article that was called Waiting Room Survival Tips to Combat Boredom. And I was actually really fascinated by this because I was curious what great tips they would have. And I do believe, before I show you what the tips are, I do believe this was written earnestly. So I don't mean to kind of make fun of it too much, but I think it is an, you know, it's interesting that in 2024, these would be the tips, the best tips to pass the time. And they include a suggestion. Again, I don't think this was a joke, but to work on your taxes, or to file your fingernails, or to search for funny memes and send them to family friends, or bring a friend to talk to. And there are many more in here that arguably I wouldn't necessarily qualify as ways to combat boredom, which made me think that there are so many spaces where people are spending a lot of time that are kind of devoid of experience. And so to speak a little bit about the work that the iCrave studio did, that I think responds to this really well. And I know that, you know, budget and timeframes and all of that factor into the ability for many places to kind of execute on bigger design ideas. But I think the general principle is still very important. So the iCrave team worked on the St. Jude Family Commons, which is it's a non-clinical environment that's dedicated to parents and their families, patients, sorry, and their families. So the idea is to provide a space for them to relax and to play and to get services like getting their hair cut at the salon, in a time that is often very stressful and difficult for children and their parents. And so applying kind of design to this space suddenly transforms what can be a very daunting environment into a really beautiful and serene one that might just make everyone's experience a little bit easier. So you've got kind of carefully thought out lighting that, you know, is clean still because you are in this medical environment, but adds a little bit of color and movement to spaces. And you've got these pops of color in these little nooks and kind of areas for play. So just kind of thinking through all of these areas that might be lacking experience, these opportunities for us to add all of these layers. So to talk a little bit more about this idea of multidimensional and very much like what we are doing at the moment at Journey, these are some of the disciplines that we have within the company. And they were disparate before, and now they're all coming together. And these are the kinds of questions that we have been asking ourselves in these disciplines, you know, and the common thread was really that it's about the people that we're designing for, whether it's in spatial design or the filmmaking and the audiences. You know, this obviously isn't revolutionary as a concept, but somehow when you're so deep in the weeds on a project, it can be easy to forget. And so we bring together all of these skills from filmmaking to lighting design, experience design, spatial design, conversational AI, visualization, all within this umbrella. And what we've been kind of doing fairly organically, I would say, is actually connecting all of these dots. And so where we were kind of looking at disparate elements, now we're looking at, you know, how could you integrate conversational AI into hospitality to improve and personalize a guest's experience? Or how can you pull learnings from exhibition design in terms of entertaining people who might be waiting in spaces, like we did for the Empire State Building, and integrate that into a patient waiting room to offer a different kind of waiting experience? And again, you know, we all have our different expertises, and I think that's what creates strengths. But at the end of the day, we're all kind of thinking about people, whether they are a visitor or a guest or a user or a patient or a customer or a traveler. And all of us are also all of these same things. So what we've also found is that we all have these common starting points, and ways in which we can lend learnings from our fields to one another. That I'm calling this, this is just for this very presentation, the multidimensional constellation, and just a kind of illustration of how we're connecting all of these stars. So I'll talk about a couple of projects now, and going from kind of early days where we were really starting to think about design beyond the screen, because again, myself coming from Squint Opera, I was focused on media and media production. But over the course of these years, that has expanded and expanded into this field of experience design, because especially when you're integrating media and physical spaces, it's not an isolation. It's kind of very deeply embedded into the experience of the space. And so over the years, we've gone from kind of being restricted to the screens to spilling out into space and actually shaping design through that integration of media and taking on more of that design thinking and design work. So for those of you who are familiar with Squint Opera, I'm actually going to mute this. This video might be a little bit choppy given my internet connection troubles. Apologies again for that. But I'll just talk over it. The Empire State Building project, we started in 2017, and it was one of those incredible, rare projects where every one of our team members was pretty much exclusively devoted to it while we were working on it. And we spent about 2.5 years producing over 40 different media pieces, from sound, audioscapes, to animations, to interactives. And all of this was for the Empire State Building Observatory. And so we were solving for this problem of prior to this project, when people wanted to go up to the top of the Empire State Building, they were stuck in basically 2 hours of queues. And it was, a major complaint on TripAdvisor and things like that. So the owner of the building wanted to change that experience and kind of apply that principle of transforming the queue into a source of entertainment, entertaining in the line to the extent that you actually forget that you're in a line. And so we worked with the exhibition designers, Think Design, to create all of the media for the Empire State Building. And the media here was kind of no small feat. It was, I'll freeze on a frame so that it's not strobing at you. The media spanned, some are totally immersive rooms, like the construction area that we designed, which I'll show a brief video of after this. And where I think the beginnings of adding in some more of these dimensions to the design started was we really started using VR around this time to review our material in context. So before anything was even built, we were making sure that it worked within the space. And again, the fact that everything that we were producing had to be so seamlessly integrated into the set works and the fabricated elements as well. And I'll just play a quick video of the making of one of the specific exhibits, which was called Construction Area. And this was a recreation of the construction site in the 1930s, or in 1930. And all of the different elements that went into making this one film. And this project really, again, made me appreciate and recognize the quantity of incredibly talented people who came together to make this vision possible. And that, from makeup artists to VFX supervisors to 3D artists to storyboard artists, like the breadth of the teams and the expertise, but also the ease and with which they work together and the seamlessness with which we work together made me kind of dream of these incredible teams of people that could be incredibly agile, but really effective for this end result. Moving on to a different project. Oh, thank you, Eric. I can read some of these comments. So this project kind of continues the vein. Well, it was in New York as well, which is always a pleasure to work at home, and continues that vein of like stretching and blending between the physical and the digital. So we worked with NBC Studios and NBC Universal at 30 Rock on their tour. And this, you won't be able to find anything available online, and we're not going to show anything about the actual experience because we can't. Oh, Eric, you've done it all. This is great.
Our vacation. Those two things.
That's great. Well, you can speak to them at the end of this then. And this was basically, we were creating media that would tell visitors a little bit more about the building and all of the shows that are produced in the building, about the timeline of NBC, its long history. about how live television is produced in a skyscraper, and then about how that content is distributed throughout the country. And what we really loved about this project, and kind of blending our spatial design, interior design eye with our digital content, was drawing from all of the cues in the building, these incredible Art Deco murals and motifs, the brass inlays, the fonts. There was so much rich visual content, and we wanted to make sure that the digital content truly blended with it. And so we kind of pulled these into a palette of textures, and things like, dust particles going through projectors and flashes, and folded that into the design elements. So even though we were showing all of this content on digital screens, we wanted to make sure that everything had this kind of texture to it. So again, I can't show anything about the project, unfortunately, but I highly encourage people to go, especially if you're a fan of anything that has been produced out of there, like SNL, which is the classic, but also, The Tonight Show and Late Night and the nightly news and so on. But it's just a kind of a brief aside on how we integrated all of these physical design elements into our digital media to make it as seamless as possible. This next project is where we really started spilling out from the screen and into thinking more deeply about these spaces and impacting how the experiences could be laid out. So this is the Navy Museum, which was a competition project that we worked on with the Bjarke Ingels group, and in DC. And as part of this project, we worked with them kind of from the earliest stages of the concept through to our final design. And so we made this film with him as well. So not only are we visualizing the design, but we are helping to co-create the concepts behind the interior exhibition spaces. And so these are just some work in progress from the team that where we were looking at how to work in parallel with the architecture to make sure that, it wasn't just a building that we would then fill, but a building that was being designed for the objects that would be filling it. So here we have this very dramatic kind of multi-story structure with artifacts suspended. And you can see that when this works in concert with the architecture, you can tell really interesting stories from the get-go. So in terms of our process, as we worked with the architects, sorry, let me just clear my throat. As we worked with the architects, we would sketch over renderings that they would share with us, and kind of throwing around lots of different ideas. And then as the process went on, we formalized this more and more, and into some of the final renders that we shared. And one of the concepts we were working through here was how could people experience the content that we wanted to share. So this was the Seas gallery, which explores all of the arenas within which the Navy operates. So expeditions, space, surface, aviation, subsurface. So pulling out here, for example, the concept for the subsurface space, which was looking at submarines. So making sure that the exhibition design matched that feeling of being in this constrained, tight space of a submarine, that it was a darker space with this kind of caustic lighting. And we were looking at these spaces as well as experience pavilions. So rather than boxing it out into galleries in a slightly more traditional sense, we wanted people to kind of explore a little bit more freeform and kind of dip in and out of these worlds, but also have visibility into all of the different environments from the outside. So yeah, these are just a few other views from this project. And then this project for me, and this is in progress, and I will say a lot of the projects that we're actively working on right now are really very cross-disciplinary. So from spatial to lighting to media, and we're doing strategy work up front to inform all of that. Unfortunately, there are a lot of things we can't talk about. And this particular project, I can talk about a little bit, but it's in progress at the moment. This is the Saudi pavilion for the Osaka World Expo. So it was designed by Foster and Partners, and we joined a team with them and 59 Productions to help design the gallery spaces that are going to be in this pavilion. And essentially what the pavilion is doing is introducing Japan and Japanese people who are maybe less familiar with Saudi Arabia, at least that's what they found when they did some initial research into it, introduce them to Saudi culture, arts, their visions, their sports, and also their nature. So a lot of people don't know that Saudi Arabia has a very long coastline, for example. Very rich biodiversity in the Red Sea. So we were responsible for designing 4 of these gallery spaces, and we're in production right now on them. But what was amazing about this project was, we were involved in it for a few reasons. One of them being that we are very familiar with the region, having done a fair amount of work there and films there as well. And also because a lot of these spaces, as initially briefed, were very visual and media heavy. And so coming with that expertise already, what we didn't want to do is just fill the spaces with projectors, as can be kind of the easy route with some media. We really wanted to execute a design that very seamlessly integrated the digital with the physical. And my favorite part of working on this project was the amount of disciplines that we were talking to on a day-to-day basis to design the spaces. So for instance, if I take the high level example of the sustainable, the gallery that's about the sea, on a day-to-day basis, I was talking to everyone from storyboard artists to tank designers to mangrove experts to the exhibition design, 3D artists, reef ecologists, all of these different disciplines. And because we brought some of our animation work up into this concept stage and some of user interface design up to this concept stage, and then into the detailed design, we were really thoughtfully able to integrate the technology and the media into the story and not have it be too much of an exciting project. And what's amazing is we're also just accountable for it from end to end. So we're not just developing things and handing them over. On the flip side, receiving a fairly final brief and executing on it. We're responsible for the design and we're responsible for the execution. And I think that adds an even greater layer of kind of importance to the work we do, and this need to ensure that everything makes sense and is beautiful and is a story worth telling. So yeah, as I was saying, that idea of thought to thing, not just working in one of these, but working across that full spectrum. And I'm almost ready to wrap up. This just a few more slides. This is something that my colleagues in London put together. And this was for a client that was coming in, and they basically outlined the entire kind of process across this table that we have in our studio downstairs, of everything from where we start, like how do we first come up with our strategy, our insights that can then define what we think an experience should be. So it's that research, looking at different visitor personas or user personas. And then how do we then map that? You'll see in the middle here, these are mapping things to a linear visitor journey. Not that everything is always experienced linearly, but oftentimes you can kind of predict certain patterns, or things like the Empire State Building are truly linear. And then you're really mapping out the experience and what you should be hitting at what moments. And then here we show how we spatialize that. So we take those core moments we want to hit, and then show it across either if it's an existing building, that existing building, or if it's kind of one in development, then we work on those in conjunction and kind of make sure that the right moments have the right spaces. And then on to kind of prototyping and testing, and then delivering the final vision. But this was a really nice way to kind of lay things out. This is just a quick aside, but I really enjoyed this exercise as an internal project within the company. A couple of years ago, we were tasked as teams to think about, to describe a wonderful human experience that could happen 5 years from now and bring the physical and digital worlds together. And this kind of mission continues to be one that we work hard on. Our team put together a cute concept for these AR blocks. So basically children could play with them and make different shapes and then leverage AR and AI to transform them into whatever their imagination desires. So that pirate ship returns, a pirate ship from my childhood. And this project only exists in our imagination, but a project that went from a concept to an actual idea is one of our projects that we built in the Apple Vision Pro.
How it works with Home Forest.
Sorry. Here we go. And this is called Home Forest, and it's an Apple Vision Pro experience where when you put the headset on, you get transported to this beautiful green natural environment with a very soothing soundscape. And this was developed, I think it was first conceived of around COVID, when everybody was stuck at home and craving more experience and more kind of comfort and meditation. And so that is an exciting project that bridges those gaps of physical and digital, but in a very beautiful way. And I believe, oh yeah, I guess the last point I will make, and then I will stop talking, is just that this multidisciplinary team that we have within the company, but also the relationships that we have developed in the industry and the way that we like collaborating with people, is really allowing us to explore a lot of different areas and also learn from different areas of design and apply them to each other. So again, why can't patient experience have an element of museum or attraction to it? Why can't sporting experience also involve more entertainment? Things like that. So drawing all these connections, having all these multidisciplinary teams that are experts in and of themselves, but talking to each other and sharing and inputting, not necessarily in massive ways, but just having those conversations, I have found has really enriched our design process. So that is everything. Thank you very much. I'm sorry again about the choppy internet.
Oh. All good. Constance, thanks so much. That's super interesting. I love getting into people's process. I think it's so fascinating. So we have a couple questions already in the chat, but if you have questions, put them in the chat and just signal if you want me to ask or if you want to ask yourself. So David Adler had a question. He said I should just ask for him. So when these sort of ideas for experiential exhibits kind of come about, like where are you typically seeing like the origin of the idea or the vision? Is it the CEO, the CMO? Where in the organization are you seeing the champions and like where that vision sort of arrives?
That's a good question. I mean, for I would say a lot of the visualization work that we do, the filmmaking work, it does come from, I'd say, CMO and CEO. A lot of it is also just, it's used for kind of internal approval processes as well. Like these, by showing people, we can make their visions more visible and get buy-in throughout an organization, for example. But I mean, we've had it from all levels. The Empire State Building, the vision really came from the CEO, for example. He was very strongly involved in the design process and really instrumental to what it became. So it kind of depends on which axis of design we're working in. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, one quick question: was that Homehorst Apple Vision Pro experience? Is that actually available? Like, if you have the Apple Vision Pro, is it on the store?
That I don't think it's available just yet. I think we still got
Okay.
it as an internal tool and prototype, but I can ask the team.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Mhm.
Well, if no one else has questions, I have so many questions. So I guess what I mean. It's funny because in some ways, what you guys do is very similar to what we do, and
Mm.
I'm curious about like what does your team look like? For any one of these clients, like what are the capabilities? Like it's so always so cross-disciplinary, but like what does that core team look like for a sample project?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to pick a sample project, to be honest, because now
Yeah.
they're getting so blended. My team personally, um, is quite a journey team,
Right.
because we've got a chunk of people from the previous kind of Squint Opera, or I guess still Squint Opera, but coming from that. And then my team also integrated team members from the conversational AI studio, Skilled Creative. So they're actually within the team. And one of those team members is a strategist as well. So not only an expert in conversational AI, but also an experienced strategist. So those are the main expertises my own team bridges. But
Mhm.
then we are in the same building and often in the same floor as our friends at iCrave, working on projects together. And when we do that, it's like a seamless integration. It's not like, oh, we're going to go ask the people at this team or this company. It's like, okay, we've got a project manager from Squint Opera, and they're working with the designers from iCrave, and we're bringing in a creative director from Squint Opera as well to look at the media, and then the lighting designers from the journey practice.
I love it.
So it's at the moment, and I hope it continues this way, it's incredibly agile,
Yeah.
which is really wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. It's good. It's cool to see that that's working out. I mean,
Hmm.
I've been following Squint Opera's work for a long time, and I always love the sort of the renderings that you guys were doing with the big group, and
Hmm.
sort of that sort of like future forecasting.
Hmm.
Is that a big part of Journey's practice now? Sort of this idea of visualizing future worlds.
Yeah, I think it'll always be. Because we have strong collaborations with those architects. And I think more than anything, like in addition to making films, we've also made kind of experience spaces where you can go and experience those future worlds. So for instance, at CES, was it CES? I think it was CES. Matt in the chat can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but for the launch of the Toyota Woven City, which Big designed, we did a kind of huge immersive presentation, and then all of these 360s of the different environments. So it's not just like creating those films, but it's also bringing people into the spaces, to show them what it's like. And then we do a lot of work as well in virtual twins.
Mm,
And digital twins. And so again, it's not just about creating the spaces, but like how can you show it at different times of day, activate it in different ways? How do you take different stakeholders through that and make that in and of itself an experience? So yeah, I think we'll be continuing to visualize the future as long as people have visions.
yeah.
And we have our visions as
Before
well.
the machines take over with all the
Before the
visions.
machines take over, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit too, because
Mhm.
I feel like some of these, like what we used to render out in like all the sort of the, going from Rhino to Blender to like all the like a lot of that stuff now generative AI is doing. And I know that there's a lot of experienced designers that have integrated generative AI into their workflows. Is that something that you guys are playing with?
Yes. Yeah, we're playing with generative AI in workflow and also in output. So we've, for instance, built a conversational AI agent that was a podcast host for
Mhm.
KPMG that we debuted at South by Southwest. So you could just go in, and we trained it to kind of prompt you on questions around innovation, which was what KPMG's interest was. Um, and so that was like an interesting use case of it, like out in the wild, and people were really responsive to that. And we used an 11 Labs voice for that as well. So every aspect of it was leveraging AI. In terms of our creative processes, I think it helps speed things up. And I don't think it's actually, at least for now, fundamentally replaced anything that we were doing. but it's helping us do more on projects that maybe didn't have as big of a budget, for example, or something like a quick pitch where ordinarily you might have someone spending a lot of time on work to kind of visualize something, where here we can just do it a lot quicker. So far, no one has lost their job to AI. We've just been able to communicate certain things a little bit better and quicker.
Yeah. From talking to a lot of experience designers, I think it's changed their mood boards a lot. Like it's better, it's almost better to use that stuff for swipe. But it hasn't really changed the products that they're building.
Yeah, yeah.
So Kyle Simmons had a question. Kyle, do you want to ask yourself? Or I will ask for you. All right, Kyle, I will ask for you. My team is working on lowering the barrier to getting designers inside the digital twin to create physical spatial experience designs collaboratively. What would you say are the biggest obstacles or the most valuable tools? Oh, there's Kyle.
Oh,
Okay, but
I mean, I don't know. I think just generally the technology, like Unreal is, we use Unreal for all of our digital twins, and the barrier to entry, learning it, is getting lower and lower. So I think part of it is just a vector of, as time goes on, these tools will be easier to use and access. And a lot of traditional visualization programs, things like Enscape and Twinmotion, things like that, are integrated in that way. So I think actually more than anything, it's like a little bit of research into what the best tool is for exactly what you're trying to do. Obviously designing in VR or in digital twins versus just seeing things in digital twins is a little different. As of right now, I think a lot of it is mostly about like visualizing things and then creating certain elements that can be modular and changeable and reviewable, but having kind of full total control in them, I don't know, it is quite there. But I'm also not the ultimate expert within the company on these. So
actually, just for the lay people in the audience, like how would you define a digital twin, like or your work with digital twins?
I mean, there are two main ways I'd say we use them. The first is when there's a building or a master plan that is in design but not yet built. And so we can ingest the models from the architects and basically have this digital duplicate of it that you can either look at from a very high level, or we can make it possible that you can dive into it and see everything at scale, or go into a floor plate of a building. So all of that does need to be kind of, we're not at the stage where you can just drop a model in and hop right in. Like there's definitely some work to do in between to get it ready. And that can be used through the design and review process to approve things, or it can be used to kind of show people, say they're building a new city next door and you want to see what it's going to be like, and maybe you might want to buy an apartment there, then you can jump into that as well and get a sense of what it might feel like. And then there are digital twins for places that already exist. And that can be, say we built one for Here East in London. So say you're on the other side of the world and you're interested in going to the Here East campus and starting, they're an innovation center, so you can get space there and work there, then you can go and visit it virtually, get a sense of what it feels like without having to travel all that way. Other digital twins can be a lot more technical, say you're simulating kind of the way that wind will move through a city, or things like that. So there's a whole range, and anything that you want to simulate, essentially.
Yeah. I love it. So a lot of it's sort of like almost like architectural pre-visualization, and probably sort of the process of actually building these experiences, but then also, I guess, experiencing those experiences too.
Yeah,
Love it.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool. So Anna had a question. She has no voice, so I will ask for you. Lots of big name clients, large scale projects, super inspiring. What does your day-to-day look like? How much general pressure do you feel like your team is under on an average day? Deadlines,
Mhm.
messaging, etc., especially with so many collaborators and coming from a media production space.
It's busy. I won't
Yeah.
lie that it is very busy, but I think one of the ways that I really like how we're split up in the company is that we have these dedicated project teams. So it's not just for specific projects. Teams are formed as a team. We move through projects and we might add people to the team as needed or enhance it with freelancers and things. But I'd say within our team, we just have a really good synergy and rapport and know how each other works and know how each other likes things done. And I think that has created a lot of efficiencies. I think if you're working with too many new people all the time, you're just all learning how each other does things. So that definitely helps. And then what we try and do is just have a system that's as efficient as possible that we can plug different pieces into. But it is busy. It's busy.
Let's see. Eric, you had a question. Do you want to ask yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, you had mentioned that on the Empire State Project you used VR for the pre-visualization. And we have a bunch of headsets in the house, and I have a 9-year-old, and she's like already been talking about it with her friends. Like, have you all
Aw.
thought about taking some of these physical design pieces and bringing them into the virtual, like kind of creating an Empire State Quest app or a Vision Pro app for those with Vision Pros? Have you all thought about kind of taking that avenue? And
Absolutely. Oh, was this a two-parter? Sorry.
and I was gonna say like, and how would that be different versus just like a digital twin?
Mm. I mean, yeah, when COVID happened, this was like the first thing that all of us, and I think in the industry, thought of was how can we bring these spaces to people when they can't go to them? I mean, I think that, the adoption of headsets and stuff is still incredibly slow, and a very limited audience. So I think we haven't found that there's enough widespread interest in this. And there have been a few of these that have been created that I think are really lovely that you could go do on your own desktop. You can go through the Getty collection. Actually, Google Arts and Culture made a lot of museums publicly explorable. But I think what you touched upon at the end of that, which is really interesting, is like actually making it an experience and not just a duplicate of what it is there. So for instance, for the Empire State Building, we're limited by what we can do with screens, but we could have a whole King Kong running through the space, crashing through walls, and then it gets really, really interesting. So I mean, we haven't done it yet because we need that buy-in from people who have interesting enough IP and material to actually do it with, but it's absolutely something we're kind of intrigued by.
Thanks, Eric. I have another question I'll throw at you. You had mentioned prototyping as part of your process. When does prototyping kind of kick in? Because I know that you guys do a lot of sort of like visualization of things. Does the visualization usually come before the prototype before the visualization, or is it kind of a trade-off?
It kind of depends, and it depends on who we're collaborating with in the project as well. Like sometimes we've done our scrappy 3D printed prototypes in the office, and sometimes we've had fabricators who were involved in the end fabrication who were able to do mock-ups and stuff. Typically, we'll do some of the visualization early, just kind of make sure that we're happy with the overall idea and then move into prototyping. But we also prototype in very small ways, from just like testing a piece of LED at scale or on a flat surface to actually building something more detailed out. I think sometimes prototyping can feel a bit daunting or expensive or time consuming, and there are actually very, like paper prototyping, when you do kind of design, a UX designer, even my colleagues will make fun of me, but I like doing reenactments for visitor experience stuff. Like it can be really, really dumb.
No, it's funny. Our prototyping is like a lot of cardboard and a lot of theater.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it doesn't look that shiny, honestly.
No,
Yeah.
but it works.
Um, no, I mean, it's also, yeah, it's such a fun part. So I'll let David Adler, he has one more question. I'll let this be the last question before we wrap up here. So David is asking, what is your vision for the lifespan of these experiential projects? Is this something that needs to be constantly refreshed? Or do you have to just start over again? Does the business deprecate the costs over multiple years? How do you make this? There's a lot of questions. Let's start with that stuff. Like,
Yeah. I mean, they're all great questions and ones we think
Yeah.
about a lot. I probably shouldn't lean on this too much as a golden example because it is such a unique one, but the Empire State Building was, we started working on it in 2017. It launched to the public between 2019 and 2020, I think. And this year, so 4 years later, it won TripAdvisor's #1 attraction in the world.
That's
So
amazing.
this is also a few years on, even from when it launched, it is still bringing in all these visitors and racking up all of these awards. And you know, having walked through it, and Eric, you can probably attest to this, having walked through it recently, but it really holds up.
Oh yeah.
So you know, you wouldn't think that it was developed a few years ago. Now I think lifespan, there are so many factors that I think can go into it, to be honest. Something like the Empire State Building has this like enduring appeal. There are other attractions that are kind of designed to be a one-time visit. So I think it just depends like what your end asset is as well. With the Empire State Building, the real experience is also the view up top. And some people might think, oh, I've seen it, so I'm good. Other people might be like, the New York skyline is changing all the time. And something we have with certain projects is also having spaces that are fixed. So you have that kind of big investment up front, but then having other elements of it that can be programmable, or black box spaces that can evolve over time and bring in new kinds of visitors. So there are lots of different ways to think about it, I would say.
Yeah. No, it's fun because, you know, I see you guys are doing something like CES that happens over a few days. And then, you know, these museums, they're meant to last for a very long time. But, you know, in
Yeah.
some ways, I think the quality of a quality experience is a quality experience, you know, and like you know, honestly, like I would imagine your clients are able to sort of, you know, their KPIs are probably met at CES and at the Empire State Building, you know, regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, unless there's like, I think we have like, oh, we're at time. Okay, we did it. This is great. Constance, thanks so much. This was a really wonderful presentation. Love the work that you guys are doing. I just wonder if there's any sort of like sign off, you know, anything that you'd want the audience to sort of do to engage, come out and see.
Sorry, I got slightly distracted by reading the comments there. So
Oh,
could you
no
say
worries. Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, you know, if like just if there's any sort of parting words for the audience, just you know, if you
parting
take that.
word.
Yeah.
I don't know, just keep thinking positively about the future, and like we have more power than I think we recognize sometimes about manifesting what that can be, especially in this industry. So I think when times seem a little dark, you know, yeah, we have a lot of power. So
I
to
love
use
it.
it
I
well.
love it. Well, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Constance. Thank you everybody for being here. Hope to see you guys all again next week on Wednesday. Remember, Wednesday, maybe I will check out the Empire State Building on Thursday. All right. So, all right. See everybody. Thanks again, Constance. Good talking with
Thank
y'all.
you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.